Here in the Hyundai Texans Radio studio, Mark Vandermeer and John Harris, now joined by General Manager Nick Caserio. Nick, congratulations. The draft is over. Obvious question here, but how do you feel? How do you feel after going through 3 days of all of this? This is a sport to you, really, being able to plow through this draft, make all the trades, a franchise record, everything you accomplished.
Yeah. I don't know who's more relieved, me or John. John's working on the 2023 draft. But no, I think it's just kind of a culmination of a lot of work and a lot of effort by a lot of people. Very purposeful work, very, I would say, all-encompassing work. And the amount of people that are involved in this process are significant. So I think more than anything, it's kind of an opportunity for them to kind of, take a little bit of a breath, kind of recalibrate, and, hopefully that the work that they've put in, will manifest itself with positive results ultimately at some point here on the field. But, I think organizationally, I think everybody is, excited with the opportunities that we had in front of us, and we just try to make good decisions and try to add players and people that we feel fit the profile of what we're trying to continue to build here with the Texans.
The underhit. We talked before the draft. You had 11, I think, going in. You then traded to get to 10. You end up making 9. Did you have in your mind a certain number, Nick, of the picks you wanted to make? Like, hey, I don't want to go under 7, but I don't want to go over 11. Did you have any kind of idea, or just that's the way it played out?
I'd say probably more than anything that's the way it played out. But, whether or not we were going to use all 11 picks, at one point I think we ended up with technically 13 total because we had acquired the 3 extra picks from Philadelphia. So we had the couple extra picks, but then ended up moving those. So I think realistically probably thought we were going to end up in this, 9 to 10, 9 to 11-ish range, just given the ability to potentially move up and down the board with the resources that we had. So you don't necessarily go in with a finite number. Ultimately, you have to let the board dictate your response and dictate how you're going to add those players. So I think you have to stay true to that and stay consistent and not necessarily pigeonhole yourself and say, well, we can only pick 9 or we can't pick 13 or, you can't really approach it that way. What are our options? What makes the most sense? Let's have really thoughtful dialogue and then let's make a decision, which we definitely had a lot of dialogue and a lot of decisions. We could have done a lot of different things with picks, whether it's move them, move back. If we move back too far, what would happen? And you have to make those sort of in real time. So once you get past the first round, I'd say, you have about sort of 5 to 7 minutes sort of make those decisions. So and the clock's ticking, and if you do a trade, then I think we did a couple of trades literally with a minute and a half, under 2 minutes on the actual clock for the actual pick. So reach an agreement, 2 minutes. Okay, you have to call the league. Okay, do we match it up? What are the terms? Okay, we're all set. All right, we're on the clock. It's a minute. Let's get the pick in. Let's get the player on the phone. Then we got to go.
It's a call, not a text or an email or any other kind of communication. Is it an actual phone call, verbal confirmation that the trade is done and approved?
Yes, it's a verbal confirmation. So the process is you talk to another team. So Philadelphia, okay, what are the terms? Are you comfortable? All right, we have an agreement. Great. Call into the league. All right, so Philadelphia calls into the league on their end. We call in the league on our end. Do the terms match up? And the league says, okay, you have a trade. You're on the clock. Ready, go. So those are the mechanics that are involved on the trade.
Obviously, you want to look for a lot of different traits in players. It felt like, outsiders looking in, the one trait that seemed consistent with every pick was it's ball. It's about football, and you talked about that. There are a lot of other things that guys can get involved with, and they will with the community and charities and things like that. But it's about ball, especially your Friday night picks. Like every single one of them that talked, it was like, I want to get to work, I want to get going, put my head down, I want to grind and work. Was there a particular characteristic you were looking for? Was that it is about ball? Those are the kind of guys you want in this building?
Yeah, and I think we've talked about that. The people that are in our building currently, like you have a lot of players with that mindset and thought process. Yeah. Ultimately, football players win football games. So what are the qualities that go into being a good football player? Well, certain physical attributes and physical skills associated with each position. Yep. Great, that's one thing. And then when you're on the field on Sundays, the mental and physical toughness that it takes to endure a 60-minute game is massive. So do you have the competitive stamina to take it one play at a time? You're going to handle adversity. You're not going to win every game 50-0. You're going to be in a dogfight. You might be down 2 touchdowns. You could be up. The other team scores. You turn the ball over. The field is going to flip. How quickly can you transition from what's going on? All right, go to the next play and then move on. And the focus is about playing football. When you're drafted to play on a team, you're drafted to play football. You're not drafted to have a bunch of marketing deals. You're not drafted to worry about things outside of football. If you're successful at football, those opportunities will come. So we want to be good football players. We also want to represent the Houston Texan community and the ownership in the community. So that's important to be able to give back to the community, be able to have an influence in the community. I mean, we're fortunate some of the players that we drafted are already in the Houston community, so their ability to impact other people, that's important. Our players do a great job with that. So you have to look at everything holistically. There's a couple different buckets, but ultimately they're paid to play football. They're paid to score points, and they're paid to whatever that's what they're here to do. So players that have that thought process, have that mindset, they're out there. Our job is to find them and bring them in the building on our terms.
What's it like to be there in the 7th round? You have no picks in the 7th round, and you're thinking, well, I hope so-and-so and so-and-so slip through so we can sign them as undrafted free agents. And the transition, Nick, from you get to draft them and they're yours to you're kind of recruiting them as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we pick Deculus there in the 6th round, all right, we have to prepare for post-draft free agency. So you have to really wait until after the draft really to consummate anything, but you kind of have it mapped out. Or here's certain players, certain pockets, and you are, Mark, you're recruiting the players to come to your organization, to come to your team, and here are the reasons why said player would want to do that. So that's part of our responsibility. I'd say a big part of it is the relationship with the agents. So you've cultivated relationships with the agents throughout the course of the year, throughout the different periods of time. They have other players that have been on and off your team. You've talked to them about players. So like anything, like football is football, but it's still a people business. And then I would say particularly the relationships with the agents, specifically, with undrafted free agency, that's a big part of it as well. And if they understand what you're trying to do and the types of players that you're looking for, maybe they steer them to you or see what you're doing or see what the opportunity is, then they can tell the player, you know what, I think your best opportunity is in Houston, and here's why. Even though these 2 or 3 other teams are interested, this makes the most sense. So ultimately, it's their decision. We can just present our case, and then they have to make a choice. And then if we are able to attain the player, great. If they're not willing to come to Houston, then we just have to go to the next person, whomever that is.
Nick, this process of going through with Lovey, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, it was great. I don't want to say seamless, but I would say it was very, we were able to work through a lot of different things, had a lot of good discussions, a lot of good dialogues. Certainly respect his opinion. He's seen a lot of good players. He's been in a lot of drafts. He has opinions on players, and he should have players. And my job is to be receptive to the opinions of a multitude of people, synthesize that information, process it, and ultimately make the right decision for the Houston Texans. Not necessarily the right decision for Nick Caserio, the right decision for Lovie Smith, the right decision for our organization and our football team.
Consciously, or did it just work out that way that you hit on every position group other than quarterback because you have Davis there and you have some depth there already with Kyle Allen coming in this offseason, but every other position group was addressed, Nick?
Yeah, I'd probably more happenstance than anything else, Mark. There was a few players, even some other positions that, maybe we had already picked that we were talking about while we're on the clock. So, you don't want to shy away from a good football player just because maybe you have another player at that position that you already added or acquired, whether it's in free agency or whether you've already drafted it. So, because you really don't know when the next opportunity is going to come. So, trust the information you have, look at the players, assess the grade, and then if it's equal, then maybe you go with a position where maybe you don't have, or maybe there's more of an opportunity or a slot available for that particular player.
Each night you get an opportunity to, because it's a 3-day draft as opposed to years ago it was 2 days, but you have a chance to go after round 1. Let's look at our board. Let's reassess. Are we where we want to be? If we've done the work, we're picking 5th in this. Okay. You get the same idea last night, and you're picking 2nd in round 4, 2nd on the day. What's that process like, Nick, when, hey, draft's over for tonight, but then you got to turn that around because you got to be ready for the next opportunity?
No, you transition pretty quickly. I think one of the things the league's done a great job the way they've set it up for Thursday and Friday. So you have time during the day on Friday to kind of get prepared for Friday night. Right. So you have the opportunity, it's going to be 2 rounds. You're kind of going back and saying, all right, look, these 32 players are gone. Okay, here's the next subset of players. All right, let's go back. Maybe there's some projects or maybe there's some, let's go back. Let's watch these 5 guys back to back to back to back to back. Okay, we're in the right spot. All right, is there a differentiating factor? All right, maybe you go do that with another position. And then you look at, all right, here's where we're picking. All right, realistically, okay, we would take these 10 to 12 players or whatever your number is,
yep.
Okay? Where do you think you have to pick them? So that window of time during the day on Friday leading up to Friday evening, it's pretty valuable,
yep.
And you can get as much out of it as you want. I'd say Saturday's a little quicker turnaround. But we're not on the draft's over, let's stay here all night and try to figure out what's going to happen. Our thought process is, had a good night. All right, let's get out of here. Let's go home. Let's get a little bit of rest. Let's come back in the morning. All right, let's start up again. Now, Friday to Saturday is a little bit different just because the timing starts, a little bit earlier, but it's the same thought process. All right, we're picking 2 in the first, in the 4th round. All right, we're going to have an opportunity to pick a player.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to trade up. All right, we're going to pick. Does someone want to trade back? All right, how far do we want to go back? What is the cost? What are we going to lose if we do that? So those are some of the discussions that take place.
All right, one more for you, Nick. Other than undrafted free agents, what's the next wave like in possible player acquisition? Is there another mini wave of free agency? There's still some players out there, veterans, that could possibly help you. How do you approach all that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Mark. We'll kind of transition to, all right, what's left in the draft in terms of players that aren't signed. Maybe there's some players that have an opportunity to come to our rookie minicamp on a tryout type basis where you don't make a commitment. That was the situation with Malcolm Butler. Like when he came as a rookie minicamp tryout. It was no commitment from the team, and it was, all right, had a decent day. Let's give him an opportunity. And the rest is history, and that's a credit to Malcolm and the coaching staff. So that's one subset, and then you'll have another subset of veteran players who are still available or still on the street who hadn't signed during the free agent period. And then you'll have maybe players that have become available as a result of the acquisitions the teams have made in the draft. So the month of May will be a little geared more towards looking at other teams, maybe some more veteran players, and there's some opportunities available to us that make sense. I would say we actually, before the draft, came to some agreements with some players that we already knew going ahead of time. That'll probably come out here, I would say, on Monday at some point, or maybe over the weekend. But to your point, Mark, we were ahead on that, or that maybe, I wouldn't say necessarily factored into who we drafted or how we drafted, but we kind of had it organized in a way that, okay, we have a couple guys here we know we're going to add. All right, let's go through the draft. Let's get through the draft. And maybe there's some other players that fall into a similar category. So that's really what the month of May will be, just specifically on the team side. And then we'll quickly transition here to 2023 and kind of start some of the spring scouting process for the next year's draft. And then kind of once you get to June, end of May, beginning of June, the scouting staff will take a deserved break, which they should, and kind of recalibrate, and then, come back for training camp and then get ready to go out there in the fall and start this process all over again.
Here we go. All right, Nick, congratulations on the draft. We really appreciate the time. Look forward to seeing everybody out in the field.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.